Welcome to BelTalks.
Thank you.
Thank you for this great film. We immediately decided to program the festival after Berlinale. And congratulations for the premiere at the Encounter section, and congratulations for the award, Fipressi Award at the Encounter section, and many more awards after that. The latest one would be one on DocuFest, Prism.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm really happy that this film has a great festival life. And I would like to start actually with the text you wrote. So the text itself could be read like some kind of poem for me. Actually, that's what I was thinking while I was watching the film. So I could easily just read this poem and enjoy it very much. So I guess it was a challenge to write this. So can you tell us more maybe about the script, the text itself, and also about the characters who read the text?
Yes. So the film, when I started working on it, I'm very influenced by I read a lot, and I'm quite into poetry and into novels as well. So this was a big part of it. I was very inspired by it. At the same time, the film itself as a structure started based in the idea of these letters between my grandparents. I was very obsessed with this, and the fact that I couldn't have the letters was something that made me move a lot towards this format of letters. So this was the first thing of, and because I couldn't have the letters, I had to invent them. And from this point, I started to write a lot of how could be this relationship between these two people that I didn't meet. They were my grandparents. I mean, I met my grandfather, not my grandmother. And how was it possible to have a relationship that was written? Actually, their love was based on the written words, and then of course they would meet from time to time, and they would make a child, and then my grandfather would go to sea again. So, but their relationship was based on the written word. So suddenly the film, as well, it made sense that the written word had as well this weight. That was one of the most important things. I wrote the script with some, like all of the scenes, more or less, and then we made some changes. And there was always some sort of highlight of what would be the sort of text that would be there. But I actually only wrote the text after shooting everything. And I did this, me and my editor, Francisco Moreira, we made a first cut of the film. And then for like 5 months, I was alone with this first cut and writing with already this idea of these lineup, changing some things, of course. But it was actually quite interesting that it started with the written word. Then I almost stopped with it because we were shooting, and then after it I had to stay like 5 months alone writing this. And the idea of I have as well a background in music, so I was quite amazed. I'm quite amazed with the idea of choirs, of many voices working together. And in the film, I really wanted to have all of these voices, like you have in big families, actually. You know, when you are in a dinner table and you don't know who is speaking because it's a bit all over. I feel a bit of this in my family. And the film, although it has a main narrator, a main voice that goes throughout the film, I was quite interested of having like the Beatriz voice, like a soprano, then you have the bass, then you have the tenor, then you have the kids. And then it was a bit this idea of making like an orchestra of voices and to make them all part of a bigger thing, let's call it like that.
So could you maybe compare it also to the birds singing?
Yes, no, definitely. I was very, very happy when I came to know that my grandmother, she used to call one of her kids little bird.
Yeah.
I was, I was, I was quite moved with that because I thought that Beatriz, my grandmother, this woman, she really saw her family as as part of a nature, and she herself would make all of these metaphors. So suddenly you are totally right. These, you know, when you are in the end of the day and all of the birds come. Kind of to say goodbye to the day. There's something as well about this in the film, a sort of farewell. So yes, I think that's a very beautiful comparison. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, um, every time you make uh, a film about the family, it's special, it's personal, it's actually very hard to make it because I guess you're constantly rethinking how to approach to your family, you know. So I mean,
Yeah.
I guess the whole process was very long, and my next question would be, how did you cope with their feelings? So
So
during
I
the
think you.
shooting or during the constructing the film, and how did it actually start? Did you talk about it first for a long time with them?
I think you just point out the most important thing, which is the time that it took. It took a quite long time, almost 6 years on the making, and it started it started like this actually. It started like this conversation you and me are having, because I was having a sort of Skype call with my father, and I was living in London, and it was quite. And he was telling me all of these, I don't know, like these things about how life going. And then, by the way, you know, your grandfather wants to burn the letters between him and your grandmother, and he asked us to help him. And in the middle of this very trivial conversation, he just told me this, and from that moment on, we had a big, not discussion, but a strong dialogue about this, and my father was like, you know, but it's like, come on, Catarina, this is part of the intimacy. You can't do anything about this. So it was very interesting because the fact that my father told me that you can't have them, I was like, yeah, but it's so sad that a person has to die twice. Like grandmother Beatrice, she died, and now she's going to die again because all of her words will be burned. So I started to immediately to write the film actually. And I told him I want to make a film about your mother, about my grandmother. And then it was very interesting because I had these very long interviews with all of my uncles and aunts, and as well some other people who met my grandmother. And their first reaction was very nice. And then they were a bit upset, and then they were concerned. And I kind of understand that, because if someone tells you, you know, I'm going to make a film about you, but, and then something very interesting happened. They were extremely generous in what they gave me about their mother and about themselves, because, you know, you can't speak only about someone who is so close to you without speaking about you. Mm. And they were extremely generous. But then there was a moment that I felt that they weren't being absolutely truth with me. Like there was something that they were hiding. And then I understood it wasn't they were being mean about it. It's just how families work. There are some things that you don't tell, you don't say about, you know, it's part of the mystery of families. We don't tell some things, we don't speak about them. So, and because I had this very strong feeling that something was hidden, I was like, you know what, if you don't tell me, maybe I can invent it. So it started this film that started with, I always start with this very eager thing, I'm going to make a documentary. And then suddenly just fiction just came very easily, because there were just these like blank spaces that I didn't know what was there. So I just had to fill in. So in these 6 years, they were in the beginning, we were very close to each other speaking about this. Then they kind of forgot about the film, which was very good for me. And then when I started shooting, I started to ask my younger cousins, which are their grandchildren or children, to be part of the film. And then something. So my younger cousins are their grandchildren, and they are pretending to be them. They're actors actually in the film. And suddenly something very beautiful happened because they started to understand what I was trying to do. And so it became this very big family saga. It was like they were all part of it. And then by the end, they were just extremely excited to see the film. By the end, I showed them the film on the 5th of January, and we had Christmas time on the 25th of December. And on the 25th, no one wanted to care about Christmas. They were all about, when are we going to see the film? Because they were so nervous. It was a mixture of many things, but yeah, so this was how the process, the emotional process kind of went on.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting approach to put your cousins to be their grandparents, right?
Yeah. It was.
Wow.
I mean, it was. It was.
I guess they enjoyed the shooting itself also.
Yeah, no, they were. It was very funny because they were like, "But come on, is this really the shirt that my grandfather used to use?" And I was like, "Oh, come on, Zed. It's not exactly the same, but." And then it was very funny because they were actually in the end very curious about the time of their grandparents, about how they used to live, and so and then the Anna, who plays Beatriz. Yeah. She actually met my grandmother. She's my cousin. She was one of my older cousins. She met Beatriz, and she's actually extremely similar to Beatriz. This is something that only for family is important, not for all the others. But then when my uncle saw Anna playing Beatriz, I think it was quite moving that there was this resemblance, this family resemblance that goes throughout. Everyone that plays is part of the film.
Yeah, so basically you were reconstructing a story about your grandmother whom you never met.
Yeah.
So can you tell us maybe more about these fictive parts that are in the film? So
this, excuse me, Marco, I lost you. This fictional.
The fictional parts of the film, yeah. You had to like rethink or.
No, of course. I was something that I was quite concerned with as well was the time where they were leaving. This is a very special time, especially in a bad way, in Portugal, which is the time of dictatorship. So it's like 48 years of dictatorship. My grandfather was born in the year, it was 1926. It was in the year when the dictatorship was made the form of government in Portugal. So this family actually grows during a very specific and unique time in Portugal, and a very hard one. So I was as well quite concerned about about understanding what was like to be a woman during the dictatorship, what was like to grow up as a youngster in a country that was completely off and shut to the world, and as well having a war in the colonies, in the African colonies. So how this shape as well a family, and these kind of things was something that I had to do some research about this, and certainly many things that appear concerning this were like when Beatriz is reading a magazine where it's written that Salazar is dead, the dictator is dead. These kind of things were, of course, they are put there in order to tell you something about the time we are living. And at the same time, for instance, they never told me that there was a funeral of a bird. But for me, it was important, just an example, to have this something, when you have some sort of sort of light of what's going to happen after in your life. So this was the first funeral they were experiencing, this funeral of a bird. And then they speak about as well what they are missing about their father. And I don't know if this happens as well in Serbia, but in Portugal, what I feel about some of these families that were born during this time is that there's no space for speaking about emotions and speaking about what you're missing and speaking about what you feel about your fathers and your parents. So I don't know, it was, to speak about these emotions, I really felt fiction had to play a big role on it, because my grandfather was a military. The education he gave to his children, it was a very strict and military education. So I thought that it was important to fiction to help me express emotions, mostly, I would say.
So also when I was watching the film, I was really amazed by how you showed the past in terms of, I mean, it's like a time capsule.
Yeah.
The 60s and the 70s, and are those objects, are they made for the film, or are they all from the family house?
Yeah, no, it's
the objects that represent different times that pass.
It's when we started doing the film, the house of my grandfather was being sold. So me and the director of photography, Paul Menezes, we started to work to film immediately without even having the script. We just, because the house was being sold in 1 month, so we had to shoot as much as we could. And then we actually had to find another house to shoot the rest of the film because the house was not there anymore. So the house where actually all of the kids are running around, that's another house. That's not my grandfather's house. But the objects, they're all from my family, and they're all from my grandfather. There was one day when I was seeing all of these objects that I was alone at my grandfather's house, and I was like, I was very moved suddenly, because I was like, the hands of my grandmother touched all of these objects. Her eyes touched these objects. So this is an extension of who she was in a way. So suddenly the objects was sort of a time capsule of a time that I didn't live. They were actually, they were the proof that this time existed. These objects, together with the stamps collection, all of these were part of this imaginary that they actually had created in their house. The only object that it's, I was thinking, the seahorse. I was thinking,
yes, right.
The seahorse is part of my mom's collection, actually. So suddenly you have all of this collection of it's all part of family collections, but they all come from more or less the same idea, I would say. And they all try to express a time that doesn't exist anymore and no longer. So they were, I thought the objects were important as well to tell about the time, but at the same time, the film, when we started to film, to make the shooting, we were quite, me and Paul, the director of photography, we thought a lot about painting, and a lot about nature morte, about the still lifes. And we thought that it would be very strong to film the film as it was all these tableaux vivants, these stills that have life. So the objects actually, I think they contributed in a way for this stillness that suddenly moves or something. Yeah.
That was actually one of my questions regarding the painting aesthetics. So did you maybe have some paintings as a reference, some particular paintings or painters, or?
Definitely. I don't come from a cinema background. I come from a fine arts background. So this was my school, and it was very nice because suddenly in these first days that we were shooting with Paulo in the house of my grandfather, we were just meeting each other actually, and suddenly I said to Paulo, you know what, you know this painting of like Silva Porto, which is a very well-known Portuguese painter who is from the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. And suddenly Paulo's eyes were just opened very wide and he was like, wow, you just said magic words. So suddenly we were exchanging all of these from Caravaggio to José Fadóbit, which is another Portuguese painter, and all of these Flemish painters from the Renaissance. This was something that was quite that was in the how to say, in the bottom of the construction of the film. So all of these painters, they were actually the basis for building I would say to build the images of the film.
So yes, so also the thing I really liked is this are these surreal moments in terms of narrative, and I think the film is really brave. For example, the scenes where you reinvent a language, so you have bird language in the film, birds are talking to your father, or you have your grandfather's like sign language, light language on the boat. And I think it's also a nice example how you can deconstruct the mainstream narration. So maybe you can tell us more about the surreal, dreamlike sequences and how did they become alive?
Wow, no one ever made me this question. This is a good one. I think that something that happens when you are doing films about the dead, because this film is as well about the dead, is that the laws of time and space, they change a bit, and you start to think that more things are possible, and so this is the first thing. The second thing is that actually when we were shooting on the boat, on this Sagres ship, which is the name of it, and when we were in Sagres, I was very amazed with the lighting, the light Morse. And I asked them if they still use it. They were like, no, but we use it, but not that much. But during your grandfather's time, this was something that was used.
To communicate.
To communicate, yeah. And it's very, and I was like, but where do you use it? And it was like, we use it when we are close enough to the coast or to another ship, and we don't want to be interfered by radar. And I thought it was something very beautiful. Is you only communicate, you communicate with light in order to touch another person or another boat or something. And actually what was nice about this is that I asked one of the sailors if he could write anything. And he was like, yeah, you just write down and I'll make it. And for me, this was magic. I was like, are you really serious? So actually what he's writing there is actually the text that I wrote. So this was something that for me was magic. What they were doing was magic. I was, suddenly the language of cinema I was amazed with that I could incorporate maybe that in the film. And then at the same time when I was the bird language, something that it felt during the film and felt as well during this time of grieving when you lose someone, is that everything is quite heavy. You are heavier. When you lose someone, it's weird because you lose a part of yourself, but you lose. You are not lighter. It's like you are heavier. And what was interesting doing this film is that to search all the time about being light. How can you be like birds? How can you kind of be between earth and sky? How can you navigate there? So suddenly the language of birds was as well a metaphor for something that you can to to breathe a bit better, to be away from the gravity. So all of these languages that kind of happen in the film, and even speaking with my mom in a dream is another sort of language.
Yeah.
Like to evoke this is, how can you evoke all of these languages in order to speak about something that you can't really touch, because you can't touch the dead, they're not here anymore. So how can we build a body which is made with many things which are not our current language, but it's like the language of dreams, of, I don't know, invention, of creation, of,
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
It's also a bit, I mean, this inevitable passing of time that just goes, and just you have to follow it in a way. That's something that I'm a bit scared of in general. So I could feel in your film that, I mean, you're trying to during the whole, how should I say, during the whole like 50 year span, or what is it?
It's 50 year span, yeah, kind of 50, 60, yeah.
50 or 60 year span, yeah. So I had also some kind of fears in myself while I was watching it. Maybe I guess it's a fear of what is the opposite of eternity?
Yeah.
Like,
of mortality.
Yes. So there is also, I mean, I think you made it universal. You made everyone think about their own mortality. So yeah, that was just a comment, maybe, or I mean, if you want to.
But I know, I think it's extremely beautiful, actually, and I was very very moved with that, with the sense that people, the sense of mortality is something we don't want to think a lot about. And I think we shouldn't think a lot about, because we are here to live. And if we think too much about our mortality, we might just die tomorrow. But from time to time, I have a lot of fear with that as well. I'm concerned with that. And I think we learned something with our dead, with the people that die around us, is that we have the duty to live and to live very well.
Maybe we should finish with this sentence. It's very nice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So thank you, and hope that you will join us on the festival.
I'm looking forward for this. So I actually, fingers crossed.
Yes.
Yes.
So